The lights were brighter than ever in the grand international TV studio. Cameras rolled. Millions of eyes from every corner of the globe were glued to their screens. Tonight was no ordinary broadcast. It was a live event promising to expose truths, to challenge power, and to shake the very foundations of politics. Captain Ibrahim Traoré sat quietly in the guest chair. Calm, confident, yet carrying the weight of his people's hopes on his shoulders. Across from him sat U.S. President Donald Trump, a man known for his bold words and brash style. What happened next stunned everyone. Without warning, Trump's face darkened. His voice sharpened. He accused Traore of damaging lies that could ruin reputations. And then came the bombshell. Trump threatened a $500 million lawsuit over Traore's comments made live, comments that had already sparked millions of reactions online. The studio went silent. The tension was so thick it felt like the air itself could crack. Viewers everywhere held their breath. This was more than a lawsuit. It was a battle for truth and dignity, live on air. As Trump's aggressive words echoed through the studio, Ibrahim Traoré did something no one expected. He didn't yell back. He didn't raise his voice. Instead, he leaned forward, steady and unshaken. His eyes looked into the cameras with a quiet strength that touched millions watching. He reminded everyone of why he stood there, fighting not just for himself, but for the freedom and dignity of millions of Africans and people around the world. Traore's calmness became a beacon. His voice was firm but respectful. "Truth is never a crime," he said. "I speak for my people who suffer injustice every day. They deserve to be heard." Instantly, social media exploded. Clips of Traore's reply flooded platforms. Supporters praised his courage. Critics hesitated, unsure how to respond. Behind the scenes, the studio buzzed. Reporters whispered, experts debated. The world was watching not just a clash, but a turning point in history. The next morning, headlines screamed worldwide. Trump hits Traore with $500 million lawsuit, and African leader stands tall against America's giant. But behind the flashy headlines, something deeper was happening. People felt the pain and hope in Traore's words. Families in Burkina Faso watched, tears streaming, feeling seen for the first time on such a stage. Young activists in Africa and beyond shared the video, inspired by a man who refused to back down. Even those who disagreed couldn't deny the power of the moment. It wasn't just a political fight. It was about justice, respect, and the right to speak out without fear. As the lawsuit news spread, questions grew. What exactly had Traore said that upset Trump so much? Why would a former president risk so much to silence one man? The story was far from over. The battle had only just begun. News of the $500 million lawsuit spread like wildfire. Social media was ablaze. People across continents debated fiercely. Some saw Trump's move as a desperate attempt to silence a rising voice. Others wondered if Traore had crossed a dangerous line. In the quiet moments before the storm, Ibrahim Traoré sat alone in his office, the weight of the world pressing on him. Letters from supporters and strangers filled his desk. Stories of hope, pain, and courage inspired by his words. He wasn't just fighting for himself now. He was fighting for millions whose voices had been ignored for too long. Yet, the lawsuit was real. The threat was enormous. His team gathered in a small room, strategizing. The question on everyone's lips: could they withstand the pressure? The lawsuit wasn't just about money. It was about power, influence, and who controlled the narrative. But Traore's face never showed fear. He understood this battle was bigger than him. It was about justice, truth, and the future of his people. Meanwhile, back home in Burkina Faso, families gathered around flickering TVs. In humble homes, small villages, and bustling cities, Ibrahim Traoré's calm voice comforted a nation that had long endured hardship. Elders wept quietly. Mothers held their children close, Young people felt a surge of pride mixed with deep sadness. Traore wasn't just a leader. He was their brother, their hope. One grandmother, clutching a worn photograph of her late husband, whispered, "At last, someone stands for us where it matters." In schools, teachers paused lessons to show the broadcast. Students watched with wide eyes, learning about courage in the face of fear. The lawsuit had become more than a legal battle. It was a symbol of resistance, a test of strength. And through it all, Traore's steady heart beat strong, a light in a dark moment. Far from the public eye, powerful figures met in shadowed rooms. Advisors, diplomats, and analysts debated the fallout. Traore's words cut deep. One said, voice low but urgent, "This isn't just about money, it's about influence and control." Others disagreed, warning that the lawsuit might backfire, making Traore a global hero and Trump look desperate. The tension was thick. International media watched closely. Allies and rivals alike weighed their moves carefully. Yet, amid the political chess, one thing was clear. Traore had struck a nerve. The world was watching how this story would unfold, and no one wanted to blink first. As news of the lawsuit broke, the internet erupted. Millions shared clips of the live broadcast. Hashtags supporting Traore trended worldwide. People posted videos, comments, and messages of solidarity. The storm was massive. But with the applause came harsh criticism too. Trolls attacked Traore's words, his background, even his very being. Yet each attack only made his supporters rally harder. In quiet homes and noisy cafes, strangers exchanged stories about what Traore meant to them. A young girl wrote about how his courage gave her hope to dream bigger. An old man said he finally felt his struggles mattered. Through the screen, a community formed, united by faith in a man who stood firm against a powerful opponent. And Traore? He watched from afar, heart heavy but resolute. The firestorm wasn't just a challenge. It was a call to fight harder, for truth. Behind the scenes, Traore often thought about the history that brought him here. A country scarred by war, families torn apart, dreams deferred for decades. His grandfather had once told him, "True leaders don't just speak for themselves, they carry the voices of those who cannot." That night, Traore remembered those words as he prepared to speak again on live television. This time, not with anger, but with compassion and unwavering honesty. He knew this moment would be remembered long after lawsuits and headlines faded. It was about legacy, about making sure his people's pain, courage, and hope would not be forgotten, and no amount of money or threats could silence that truth. Just hours before his next broadcast, Traore sat alone in a dimly lit room. Outside, the city's noises faded into the night. His mind raced with questions. How far would this battle go? Could he protect those he loved while facing such a giant? Would the world listen to his story? Tears welled up, not of fear, but of the heavy burden of leadership. Then, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He remembered the faces of children in his country who believed in him, the mothers who prayed for peace, the elders who hoped for change. That night, Traore made a silent promise. No matter what came next, he would stand tall, for them, for truth, for justice. And with that, the quiet before the storm ended. Behind the calm exterior, Ibrahim Traoré carried silent burdens few knew about. Long nights spent worrying about his family's safety. Quiet moments questioning if the fight was worth the cost. His wife, quietly strong, stood by him through every threat, every sleepless night. Friends and advisors urged caution, but he refused to step back. He thought of the children in his country who couldn't afford to dream, of mothers who lost sons to violence, of elders who prayed for peace but saw little change. Every word he spoke was for them. Each risk was a step toward hope. Yet the lawsuit loomed, a giant shadow threatening to swallow everything. Still, Traoré's spirit did not break. His fight was not for fame or fortune. It was for justice, for truth. And in those unseen sacrifices, a quiet hero was born. As the days passed, the courtroom battle began shaping international conversations. World leaders watched carefully. News outlets debated endlessly. Some countries expressed support for Traoré's bravery. Others stayed silent, wary of power struggles. The lawsuit was more than a legal fight. It was a battle for respect and recognition on a global scale. Traoré's every move was scrutinized. Every speech, every interview, every gesture dissected. Yet through it all, he maintained his dignity. He spoke not just to win a case, but to inspire millions watching from afar. His words became a symbol, a reminder that even the smallest voices could challenge giants. And as the world held its breath, a new chapter in history quietly unfolded. Back home, the lawsuit united a nation more than anything before. People of all ages gathered to support their leader. Stories poured in, of neighbors helping neighbors, of communities standing strong against fear. Schools organized discussions about courage and truth. Artists painted murals celebrating Traoré's bravery. Even those who rarely followed politics felt a spark of pride. For once, the world wasn't just watching headlines. It was watching real change. And as the nation stood behind their captain, a powerful message echoed. No threat, no lawsuit, no matter how big, could silence the heart of a people united. Traoré's fight was now their fight, and together, they were unstoppable. The pressure on Ibrahim Traoré grew heavier each day. Letters from strangers flooded in, messages of hope, desperation, and belief. "You are our voice," one read. "We believe in your courage," wrote another. But alongside the support came the burden of expectations. Traoré was no longer just a leader. He was a symbol of resilience for millions. Every word, every action was scrutinized. The world expected him to win, to be perfect, to carry the weight of an entire continent's hopes. At night, alone in his room, Traoré felt the weight keenly. Tears came quietly, not from weakness, but from the immense responsibility. Yet in those moments, he found strength in his people's faith. Their dreams fueled his determination to stand firm against a storm much bigger than himself. He knew that no lawsuit, no threat, could break the spirit of a man who carried a nation in his heart. The courtroom became a battlefield, not just for money, but for the truth itself. Lawyers debated fiercely, presenting arguments that echoed far beyond legal halls. Trump's team claimed Traoré's words were dangerous lies, seeking to silence him forever. But Traoré's defense was clear and simple. Truth is not a weapon. It is a shield. Outside the courtroom, protests erupted. People demanded justice, chanting for freedom of speech and respect for the oppressed. The world watched as history unfolded, a battle where words carried the power to change lives. And through it all, Traoré remained calm, his faith in justice unwavering. In the fight for truth, he found not only courage, but hope that one day, voices like his would no longer be silenced. After weeks of heated exchanges, a rare moment of silence fell over the world. News outlets paused, social media slowed. The storm seemed to hold its breath. In that quiet, people reflected on what this fight truly meant. It wasn't just about money or lawsuits. It was about a man who dared to speak truth to power, knowing the cost. It was about millions who found their stories told at last. And it was about hope. Hope that even in the darkest moments, courage and honesty could light a path forward. For Ibrahim Traoré, the silence was not the end, but a beginning. A beginning of change, healing, and a future where truth could no longer be silenced. The courtroom drama reached its peak. The judge's gavel echoed like a heartbeat in the silent room. Millions watched, breath held. Traore stood tall, unwavering, as witnesses spoke, not just of words, but of courage and truth. People recounted how his message had inspired hope in forgotten places. Trump's team pushed hard, but cracks appeared in their case. The world began to see that this was not just a lawsuit. It was an attempt to silence a voice for justice. And then came the turning point. A powerful testimony from a respected global leader who praised Traore's bravery. That moment shifted everything. The tide turned. The courtroom wasn't just a legal battlefield anymore. It was a stage where hope fought fear and truth began to win. Outside the courtroom, a wave of emotion swept through cities and villages alike. Supporters of Traore celebrated quietly, tears flowing freely. For many, this was more than a legal win. It was a victory for their dignity, their stories, their dreams. Families who once felt invisible now felt seen. Children who once doubted their future now believed in change. The lawsuit had intended to break a man, but instead, it united millions. Traore's calm courage had sparked a movement, reminding the world that truth and justice belong to everyone. And as the sun set on that historic day, a new chapter began. Not just for Traore, but for all who dare to speak out. In a heartfelt speech, Ibrahim Traoré addressed the world, his voice steady, his eyes filled with tears. "I stand here not for myself, but for every voice that has been silenced," he said softly. This fight was never about money or power. It was about truth, about hope, about justice. He thanked his supporters, his family, and even those who opposed him, for forcing a conversation that the world needed. And then, with a quiet smile, he made a promise. "No matter what tomorrow brings, I will continue to stand for those who cannot." His words echoed in hearts everywhere. If this story moved you as deeply as it moved me, please hit like and subscribe. Share your thoughts below. Tell me which moment touched you the most. Your comments keep this story alive and help others discover it too. Let's stand together just like Traoré. Strong, united, and unbreakable. Thank you for watching, and remember, truth is a light that never fades.